everybody. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Today is our favorites. And in case you are new to the channel, we like to talk about a director, actor, genre, any collection of movies that exist, and we talk about our favorites in that category. And are you feeling lucky? Are you? Punk? You're punk. Because today, yeah.
It just sounds like
arguably
Dickey has like bad breath.
Is that really what it's
There's just no power behind that rasp.
Yeah.
You gotta
It's just kind of airy.
You gotta growl like he does.
See, you're not capable of growling. Are you feeling lucky? Punk.
You gotta ask yourself a question. Did I fire for 6 shots or only 5?
In case you couldn't tell from our impeccable impersonations, it's Clint Eastwood Day.
Yeah.
You know what? You know what's funny? You know what's funny? That is arguably his most iconic line.
Yeah.
None of us picked it.
Dirty Harry. Yeah, none of us picked Dirty Harry.
Would you say that is his most iconic movie?
I don't know about that. Your pick might be his most iconic movie.
Yeah.
That is what he'll be known for in 100 years.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, but I will say it is fun. The Dirty Harry. It's funny, like, because I watched Fincher's Zodiac, and when the part came up where it's like, oh yeah, that's right, Dirty Harry was made about the Zodiac killings during this whole thing. Okay.
Wait, during the Zodiac killings? Interesting. I'd never actually seen Dirty Harry.
I just watch that and then watch Zodiac, so you get like that context. Like this is kind of weird putting this movie.
Does that make Zodiac kind of a companion piece to
Dirty
Dirty
Harry?
Harry?
Interesting double feature you got going there.
It makes sense.
And I am assuming you watched that on your double pack of Prisoners in Zodiac, because that is just the happiest double feature I've ever heard of.
Make you feel really good at the end. Anyway, let's get into our Clint Eastwood.
This is acting, by the way, what we did directing last week.
Yes. So in case you didn't tune into last week's episode, we talked about his directing movies. Go watch that, and then check out his acting movies, because Eastwood loves to do both. And I know we just mentioned who's going first before this. I already forgot.
It's me.
It's Jared, okay?
Yep. Of the three of us, Dickey's pick is the only one that Clint directed. The other two he did not.
Yeah.
But we're starting with mine.
Yes,
and mine is Where Eagles Dare, a World War II action espionage movie from 1968. This is coming off of the heels of the Dollars trilogy for Clint, so at this point, amongst other things, he's pretty big name at this point, but he's not top billed in this movie.
I was noticing that the entire movie, he was kind of like, wasn't like the biggest.
Yeah, so Richard Burton is billed first because Richard Burton was huge. This is actually Richard Burton's last box office hit of his career. It's kind of at the end of his career. And for those who don't know, Where Eagles Dare is basically their British intelligence. Clint is an American, I think he was lieutenant, right? I forgot already. Lieutenant who has to go with them because they're retrieving an American, quote unquote. It's basically they have to infiltrate this Nazi base that's up in the mountain. That's just the only way up there is either helicopter or the cable cars, and that's the basis for it. And I had seen it before, and I loved it the first time. Of course, why else would I pick it? I forgot how much Richard Burton just dwarfs him in terms of lines, and then I read Clint hated the script, so they gave most of his lines to Richard Burton. So Clint was just mostly doing action stuff. I was going to
say, definitely watching this, it did not feel like a
Clint Eastwood.
He felt like a supporting actor.
He really, because I obviously this was the first time that I watched this, and so when you picked this, I'm like, okay, so we're going to get the classic Clint Eastwoodisms, like it's staring eyes and stuff. Like you really didn't get like that.
I'm telling you, he squinted his eyes when he did his first spaghetti western and never opened again.
He had one pretty good line, and that was his last line. He was like, "Next time you could do this, keep it an all British thing." Yeah. I was like, "That's pretty good."
I do remember that. Yeah.
And I also read Clint kills more people in this movie than any of his other movies.
No way.
This is his highest body count. Well, if you think about how many people does he mow down to that machine gun,
in that stairs scene,
and all those explosives going off, like
that is they had a lot of explosives.
When I was reading like reviews of it, like people kept pointing out, like it's funny how even though it's from the 60s, it's pretty gruesome. there's a lot of death.
Yeah.
And people just die like flies. They really do.
Yeah, you point out I feel like they were always using explosives to get away. Like they're always tying trip wires.
So much dynamite with them.
Like, oh my god!
It's one of those movies that you can see why, like the Tarantinos and the I'm trying to think of another one of his era, like the Robert Rodriguez's, like they grew up watching these where it's not about the characters, it's just about like some kind of convoluted, complex plot with a bunch of explosions, and that's what makes this fun. It is I wouldn't say mindless action. It's like a step below it though. There's so many explosions and so much gunplay.
Yeah, there is. So the one thing, I this is the point that I wanted to make. That if it's on top of that is because it is a more action centric. I feel like the datedness of this is what drags it down. Because
in what way? I'm just confused. I'm just curious.
So like, I feel like just because like technology gets pushed more and action and stuff gets pushed more nowadays, it's when you do just your boring standard action movies like Fast and Furious or other things like that.
Fast and Furious is not boring, Dickey.
They went into space.
That's okay.
And they look like minions.
But so that's kind of what I was getting around. Okay, maybe boring is the word, but I feel like action movies nowadays are easier to keep your attention because the technology is there to do more ridiculous and bizarre stuff than back in the day. Where this being an action movie, I kept just like nodding off and looking at my phone.
I don't think it's that. I think it's because of how we've grown up with things being faster in every facet of life, and even like we've mentioned in previous episodes, kids having things be way faster. We just don't have the attention span anymore.
Action needs to be a little faster sometimes, though, for it to like it has to. Like that's at least in my opinion, that's what makes like an action or like a fight scene good, is when it can move at a good pace, but you don't lose track of it. Where I think this just moved at a too slow of a pace.
That wasn't my problem. I felt like the action was good. You know, for a 60s movie, it's obviously not the same.
Obviously.
Yeah. My thing was, and I did like the movie. My thing was, I felt like there were things that happened that had, I don't want to say no explanation, but that's kind of what I mean. Like they just kind of happen, and like it's like there's like the characters know more than you know, but they're not telling you or showing you what you need to know. So like, to be honest, for the first hour or so, I thought it was like going to be like a whodunit sort of thing because all the people kept dying. Like
Me too.
The dude died in the parachute, and they say that he didn't die because of his landing.
Someone broke his neck.
Someone killed him. Well, I don't remember if they ever really revealed that.
They do and don't. The first time I watched it, I remember I was a little confused because we're gonna have to bring up the scene in the at the table there in the castle.
Yeah,
it's basically the other three, because I think they do explain it in the plane at the end. The other three were suspected of being German agents. They couldn't pin anything on them, so they put them on this mission, and there were two others with them that were suspected but not confirmed. Yeah. So once they were killed, they realized, okay, they weren't. So the other three were the ones that did it.
Okay, so that I got, that they were German agents. Like, I feel like it's kind of like this might be completely wrong. I feel like it's kind of like a 60s thing to assume that an audience knows something and then talk about it later in retrospect.
Yeah.
Is that pretty accurate of that era of movie?
Part of me feels like movies older than it explained a lot or didn't explain. You know, it's kind of the two extremes.
So it's kind of a swing in the other direction.
I wonder if it's kind of like a thing like so many movies spoon feed you that it's like late 60s. You know, we understand how movies work. It's kind of how things happen today where it's like now there are tropes that we'll do that I feel like we don't fully explain in the movie because we're used to it. Mm-hmm. And what happens is the tropes fall out of favor eventually. That's what happens, you know, the cycles. And then when we bring it back after a long time, we kind of have to re-explain it.
Yeah.
Just people don't remember movies
I
from way before. If they aren't they're like their favorites, they'll just kind of go, oh yeah, that movie. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So that's what this feels like. We're starting to get close to the modern.
I do really love that scene at the table though, because it had me like laughing, because it seemed like every couple of minutes I was like, I know it's really this. No, wait, it's really this. No, now it's me.
I felt that way the first time. That was like the one part where I was like, what? And then this time it was much smoother. It's because I knew it was coming, and I was like, okay. Because last time it felt like that, and then this time it's like, okay, what he's doing is Clint is there because he needs someone to trust, and then Mary is there so he can have someone he trusts, not with the group. So that's why they're there.
The group becomes not a group very quickly.
Oh, yeah, because they start dying.
Yeah.
And then they get captured, which I remember thinking, like, I don't remember them getting captured on this second. Well, how does this work? And I realized that's how they get up the cable cars. Oh, that's a risky move, but it worked. Like, I liked that. When he's telling everything.
I didn't realize they intentionally got captured.
Yeah.
You're right, they did.
Yeah, he says, because they can't get out. Remember, he's like, gentlemen, any suggestions? Because there's nowhere to go. He goes, see you after the war. And he just turns them all in. And I go, oh, because he and Clint do get out of it pretty easily. Yeah. That was funny. Okay, that made me laugh too. So they kill the guys in the car, and they push the car over the cliff, and it just explodes while it's rolling. It's not even rolling. It's just going down. It just blows up. I go, okay, that's funny. That's funny. That was. I can take you shooting cars and them exploding all day, but that's like, it didn't even hit anything. It just exploded. I don't care. Explosions are fun.
Explosions are fun.
Yeah, so going back to that scene, it's like, okay, so Richard Burton was a double agent. With the Germans. They called him back because they realized MI6 was infiltrated by German agents. So they have this whole convoluted, complex plan because they have to get the guy was an actor. They had to get him back, but in doing so can get all the names of all the German agents. It's a bit too complex for its own good, but the second time I was like, okay, that makes sense. This is actually a lot smoother. And of course, the one German guy who comes in with the gun just suspected, like, I liked that where all it took was one conversation with Mary to realize, like, yeah, this person isn't who they say they are. So
I do like the scene at the end in the airplane though. When Richard Burton is like, I don't remember what he said.
He's like, you deserve to hang, but you can
choose.
You can choose, and Turner just kind of is like, okay, and because remember I like how he gets himself not by admitting something. He picks up the gun, and the gun doesn't have any bullets in it. The clip's empty, and he's like, you just kind of you hanged yourself right there. Mm-hmm. And I like that. And then we don't even see him jump out, and Clint just gets up, shuts the door, sits down, and goes to sleep because none of them have slept much this whole movie.
Very Clint Eastwood thing to do.
It's a very Clint Eastwood thing.
I will say one definite thing that this movie reminded me of is The Boiling Rock.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
That's what it reminds me of. In its setup. Only in its setup, but...
cable cars too.
Yeah.
I did like all the action that was on the cable cars. That was pretty cool. I did like the design of that. I think... Obviously, they use your classic just drawn backgrounds or whatever, but it looked good.
The fight on the cable car after when they're trying to make
I couldn't. What?
When Clint Eastwood is fighting those two guys on the top of the cable car,
yeah,
and he takes that pickaxe and just
that was Richard Burton, wasn't it?
What?
Yeah,
I don't remember.
Clint was knocked out at that point.
Okay,
Richard Burton gets him with the hammer, right? The climbing hammer.
That's my bad. I must have missed something and just kind of assumed that it was Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like Richard Burton at that point was not a very agile person, so it's
you could tell.
Yeah, there are times it's like that's one of those like, yeah, he's the bigger star in that moment. A couple years more, Clint Eastwood would be the one fighting on top of the cable car, not Richard Burton.
Oh yeah.
You know what else?
And he gets that hammer. Ow! Just Oh, man, it just...
That was good. That was...
The other thing that I thought was funny was, I might be wrong for this. 1968 Clint Eastwood looks a lot like early 2000 Charlie Sheen. I looked at that and I was like, no, that can't be.
I mean, he did a little bit. Yeah, I definitely.
It's
picked up on
it's
it.
the way his hair is.
Yeah.
Up, but also slicked back in his right here.
Back when he had hair.
There is one scene where I remember it confused me. So when they're at the radio room, not the first time, they're at the separate radio room before the guy who sets the alarm, right? He's walking towards him slowly with the knife. And I go, okay, why don't they just shoot him? And then he gets close enough, the sound stops, the guy turns, and he hits the alarm, and then they just shoot him. I was like, why don't you just shoot him? Because it leads to that whole firefight from the hallway. I remember thinking, like, why don't you just shoot him? Just shoot him.
I like how slowly Eastwood picks up the grenade and just kind of...
Yep.
Like that, you would have been dead. It would have been gone in your hand by now.
Yeah.
It
is what it is.
It's a fun movie from the 60s. It is very much a 60s movie.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we want to jump to a completely different era.
We have kind of 3 different eras of Clint Eastwood going today, don't we?
There really are.
No, I guess not.
Ours are similar, but they're like yours is kind of the start of it.
Yeah. And
then our movies are completely different.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. His is we're jumping 40 years.
40 years.
Nice.
And in case you couldn't guess which one that is, it's Gran Torino, a.k.a. Clint Eastwood just coming up with as many
grumpy old Clint.
Asian slurs as he possibly can.
Oh my
and also
gosh.
just making the noise.
Not just Asian slurs. He used just about every slur you can think of.
Oh yeah.
Outside of a couple big ones, but it's everyone. He's doing it to just about everyone. More to some than others, but there are times it's like, oh my gosh.
How does the song go? Whisper to me.
Settle down tenderly. Whisper to like Gran Torino.
Is that actually Clint Eastwood singing?
Yes. This is not the first time he has sang for movie. You ever heard of Paint Your Wagon?
No.
There is a Western musical from the late 60s called Paint Your Wagon, where Clint sings a couple songs and Lee Marvin also sings. Neither of them are very good.
I feel
At least Clint tries. Lee Marvin's singing is Wandered Star. That's what it sounds like.
I want to watch that.
It's 2.5 hours too. It's like there was some line from a book. It was like, this musical was made for these people, and Hello Dolly was made for these people. I don't know who Paint Your Wagon was made for. But yeah, so yeah, I knew you're gonna jump to that. So it's at the end of the movie, and it's like, well, technically it plays earlier in the movie too, but he's not singing. I'm not trying to dog on his singing to it. It's just really funny to me.
Yeah,
it made me think it was like Bob Dylan for a hot second.
Yeah, I could definitely hear that.
Yeah. You were saying about Gran Torino, though?
Yeah, no, I think Clint Eastwood gives a good performance as this character.
He's the only person who could play this character.
He's the only...
Who else could play?
Do you even think a movie like that could be made? Like, if he went to someone and pitched it now, do you even think?
I don't think so.
No.
Or they take out most, if not all, the slurs.
Yeah,
I think
that's kind of the whole point.
I know, but that's how it works these days.
Yeah.
Because it is that whole conversation of like, we probably shouldn't be saying these, but also like, how do we convey that this is wrong? We can't just not talk about them. Mm-hmm. And of course the problem is, how many times do we laugh at him saying that stuff? And then you have to step back and go, is this okay that I'm laughing at this?
Yeah.
I laughed so many times at that movie where I was like, oh.
I shouldn't be laughing.
Literally me and this entire way I'm watching, just like, oh no.
It takes place in Michigan.
It does. It takes place in Detroit. Yeah.
Detroit.
So,
filmed there too.
So
I didn't know that one.
I had a lot of I'm not from Detroit, but I've spent a bit of time.
Are you?
I'm
ish.
Close.
But it was fun because there were a lot of areas where I was like, I've been there.
I know that spot.
And it wasn't just the shot up Jefferson at the end either. Yeah. It was like a lot of it.
That was the name. I could not. I was like, I've seen that road before, like it's on the lake, right?
Yeah.
But I could not think.
That is like right in front of Druzel Road, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
And then Charlevoix. Yeah, I've been to a lot of those places.
Yeah, and they not only does it make sense for the story because he worked for Ford, but that's when the tax cuts were first a thing, which was like 07 or 08, somewhere in there till like 2014.
It might have been the thing that started making Detroit revitalized.
The tax cut?
Yeah, like the film
for
thing.
Filming? Makes sense.
Don't get me. I can go down a whole rabbit hole on why it's idiotic that they got rid of give Michigan film incentives back.
Such a good place to film too.
There's literally
we're here.
Think about all the iconic scenes that.
And also
you got your Road to Perdition.
I know
30 minutes or less.
Getting off a complete tangent on this, but
Transformers 4
somewhere in time.
Literally, there's so many different you can go to the random middle nowhere Michigan and you get beautiful vistas and trees and stuff, or you can go to the suburbs like Grand Rapids or Detroit. There's a lot of places to film Michigan and bring it back. Anyway, just want to get that out of there because it gets me heated. But this movie,
if you can't tell, he is a filmmaker.
Yeah. I want to make movies in my home state, please. But this movie is
I remember.
No, this is very good. It's obviously the obvious things notwithstanding.
Yeah,
but it's a very good story. It's a redemption story. Yeah, and it does it very well. And especially when you dig into it and realize that the reason he used those slurs and had all that hate was because he had to make himself hate the people that he was doing stuff to in Korea. Yeah. And he just
to cope with it.
Yeah. And to just, you have to, in order to, sometimes I would assume, I've never been in a war. I've never been around war, but I would guess that in order to carry out some of that, you have to make a person seem less of a person.
That moment. Sorry, you want to go or you want me to go?
You go. I just think that makes sense.
That moment at the end when he locks Tao in the basement so he won't go do something stupid, right before he goes, and he says, when you have to shoot people that are looking right at you, these boys, not a day goes by I don't think about that. I go, man, that's really good. That just how they did that.
Well, and that's why, and that's why when we talk about okay, is this a white savior movie? I don't think it is.
I mean, it's kind
of
torn.
If this is the line, it kind of goes.
Rides the line.
But I don't think it is because I don't think it's about him saving them. I think it's about
saving himself.
Yeah.
I mean, he does die in a Jesus position. when I saw his arms out like that, I go, it better not be. And his feet are flat. I go, oh my gosh.
I mean, he did just kind of fall. So
I know it's like. How many movies have done this?
It did kind of shock me that he did not have any weapons on him.
Well, it's because they wanted, obviously.
Yeah, he was dying anyway, which I remember I was talking to you about that. I like how they didn't tell us because in my mind, from watching it 10 years ago, it was, they don't really, there's just that one part where they talk about it. And then I'm watching it this time and he's coughing up blood the entire movie.
Pretty much always coughing up blood.
Yeah, and I remember, I was like, I don't remember it being that obvious, but I watched it when I was in high school.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't even. Well, I think they told you enough that there's something wrong with that he's sick enough because I honestly forgot from time to time that he was and they clearly showed it, but you still for another 15 minutes passes, you forget about that and you see him going why is he killing himself? Oh, it's because it was going to happen no matter what. And it still is it's a very moving. When he just went to grab the light, I thought he
got a light.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I thought, I'm is he really about to take up this entire, then it was just for the lighter. It's yeah, that's smart. So that way he's not going to get in any post humorous issues because he's didn't have any gun. So smart man.
I remember when the first time and the only time I'd watched this before this podcast, my friends and I, we had school off one day. I'd bought the movie on DVD from a gas station.
Really?
And we were excited to watch it, but it's one of those where, my parents don't allow language in the house like that, so it's like, we got to watch it when they're not around.
Oh,
we have a snow day. So we had a snow day. I remember we walked through a blizzard to get pizza. And then we trudged all the way back and watched this movie, and we were dying laughing.
Oh my God.
We loved it. The line that I can say that just cracks up was when he goes, "Yeah, I'll blow a hole in your face and go inside and sleep like a baby." Again, there's not many lines from this movie we can actually repeat.
No.
But yeah, funny enough, he never actually... He fires one shot in the movie, and it's when he trips in his garage when Tao's in there, and he hits, like, the sign on the wall.
Huh.
That's the only time he fires a weapon.
That's kind of interesting. I never noticed that.
Yeah, I was thinking, I don't think he ever actually fires his weapon. In that scene, I was like, I don't remember what kind of gun he had, and then... Oh, he's got an M1 Garand.
Yeah.
Because, from Korea, it's like, oh my gosh. Just carrying it around.
Oh, yeah, just Clint Eastwood. You're right, though, what you said earlier. Like, he is the only man that could play
half of the movie is...
Why? Can somebody tell me why they just wanted him to growl so much?
I mean...
Like, why is he
does it fit? He's just so fed up with everything. He does. The entire time is just Oh, and his family was awful.
Oh my God!
Oh my goodness.
Does he have 2 sons or just 1?
2.
Okay.
So he has 2 sons, and then their kids just are not interested in him at all, and he's not interested in that. It's like,
yeah,
it's. And then they try to say well, you should you should try this home. It's like, oh man,
I remember that. I'm just watching this play out, and it's like
kicks us out on his birthday. Well, they are. He feels helpless because here's a phone. It's got the bigger buttons. It's like, oh my gosh. It's like technically he is dying at that point, but it's like what.
With regard to the sons, I think the hardest one for me to watch was when he is looking at the test results, and he's calling his son, and he's trying to reach out, and his son just goes, "Yeah, I just don't have time for you right now." He literally says that, and I'm like, "Oh,
no, that was."
I got a bunch of paperwork right now, Dad. Could you just wait till later? Yeah, that's good. And I was like, ooh.
But
that one does hit different.
That makes me wonder, this is an interesting question. What do you guys think this movie would have been? What do you think the tone would have been had his wife had it not started at the funeral of his wife?
It kind of sets off everything in a way.
She
was kind of the only thing keeping him connected to life. So when she's gone, it makes sense.
Not only that, but can you imagine this character if you don't start out the gate with sympathy for him? Because that's true. That's the way I'm thinking. That's before we see him be any kind of terrible that he actually is.
That's a very good point.
Can you imagine if it just started without that, or if he didn't have a wife?
He's probably, I would dare I say, he probably wouldn't be redeemable. If you didn't,
I think it would be harder to get an audience to the redeem point.
Yeah, because I think that's what that's a really good point. Because this entire movie is pretty much how far can we push this man that you do not agree with him until we bring it all back and show him that he's actually a good person. But how many slurs can he say to think that he's a horrible person?
And do you know what I think is interesting as well? And I don't know how accurate this is to real life because obviously I am a white male. I have never really experienced any sort of prejudice or anything. It's interesting that the Hmong people, they don't react to him when he
insults them.
Well, that's what
I can't
remember the daughter's name.
Sue.
Because like that's what she didn't react at all. Like, she just like called him back.
Actually, no, I take that back. They do react, but they react kindly.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
because it's not like, this is stupid and a bad example, but when you see people react on something like TikTok,
yeah,
they don't react with kindness.
No. Well, that's a good point though, because like I think the scenes that made it really work were when he went into his barber. And those two were just like calling each other out, and like she was, and like
he pulls the gun on.
I know.
That
oh my god!
So, why you don't know this, man? How about hi, hello? Could you give me a cut? That whole scene is wonderful.
It's great, and I think that's what like. For some people that are similar to Clint Eastwood's character in this. You just have to call them out on their crap to like so they can like recognize you a little more, so they can respect you. Essentially, is like if they're calling other people out, if you call them out, they're kind of like, oh, okay, you're real like that. You can do that. But all right, anything else on Gran Torino?
I don't think so.
All right, good stuff. Well, next up
is a movie Dickey doesn't like. I'm just ripping the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, you're just going to jump right into it.
Yep. Welcome to another installment of Dickey is Wrong.
It is really upsetting because I genuinely believe, and this is not just a nostalgia thing. Mm-hmm. My pick is the classic, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The final installment of the Man with No Name trilogy. Jared pointed out to me the other day the prequel to the other two, which I had never
I brought it too.
Ooh.
I brought it because we're going to get to to something that we'll talk about. This is the version I've only seen, but we'll get to that in a second.
So, I love this movie. I have as I think I've spoken of before on this podcast, my dad loves Westerns. I've seen so many Westerns because of my dad, and like Space Cowboys, a lot of what I originally remembered of this movie is my dad like laughing at it and my dad engaging with it. But except this time when I watched this since like when I was a kid, and it actually is good. I love the music. I feel like so many scenes in this movie, if they did not originate the Western trope, they iconized it.
Iconized?
It made sense to me.
Okay, fine. Iconized it.
I wonder if that is a word.
Yeah, see if that's a word.
Yeah. But you are though, right? I mean, like.
But like, yeah, like the final scene in the graveyard.
It is.
It is a word?
Yes.
There you go.
Even some lesser ones like Tuco shooting him from the bathtub.
What? If you need to shoot. Don't talk.
Love that. This movie, it just balances the lighthearted and heavy-handed Western feel just so well.
It does balance it well. I will give it that.
And Lee Van Cleef, that first scene when he walks in there and they're just eating it and there's no salad, they're just eating. I love it.
That was a very it was
the giant spoon. Like I watched a couple videos about like the spaghetti Western, and it's like everything's dirty. They have this giant wooden silverware. There's
sweating.
A lot of Catholic imagery just because they filmed these in Spain. Like at least this one was filmed in Spain. It's like just very different from the clean cut good guy versus bad guy Hollywood Westerns of the time. So I just thought I was thinking about that. Like, man, that is a giant spoon.
I still argue.
That's what you thought of how big the spoon was.
Yeah, it's like that big. And he's.
I still sort of argue that the spaghetti westerns are kind of the start of the revisionist westerns.
That's probably true.
Checks out. But yeah, so.
All right, Dickey, let's get into it. Let's do this.
Okay, so where is my phone? Because
he wrote notes.
I wrote notes. You know it's serious when I come out here with the notes.
Note 1: I don't like old movies.
yes,
This one was in color, which makes it better.
I swear.
But it came out before the 80s. Movies didn't exist before the 80s.
Movies didn't exist before Top Gun.
Really quick, I want you to look at this right. Look how many notes I wrote down. Okay.
You know that many words?
Look at that.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
You're gonna read
the rudeness.
Read. Okay. Don't talk. Read.
Okay.
Don't talk. Read. No, don't talk. Shoot.
I see what you're doing there. Okay, but so really quick. Let me preface this by I was just talking into my phone.
You're gonna say drunk.
You
didn't even type it?
No, I was talking.
You could make this into a drinking game.
You totally could.
Every time Tuco almost dies.
But
every time you hear
okay, so I could read this word for word, but I think what I really just want to get down to.
Then why did you take it out?
Yeah.
Because I wanted to make a point.
That was funny.
To make a point.
Look how much I wrote about this, and I'm just gonna set my phone back down.
I thought about this. I don't want you to attack me for my.
We're not attacking.
You are going to attack
me. Yeah, we are.
I know,
because it's one of the greatest movies ever made.
And so here
you're allowed to like whatever you want to like.
Bad taste is still a type of taste. It's just the bad kind.
I simply stated this. Technically speaking, this movie is.
It sounds like he's going to go into subjective versus objective.
So you can separate them.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I'm sorry, I didn't even let.
I do know that's fair. That's totally fair. I let the door open for that one. But no. So technically, I think this movie exemplifies just everything about the cliches behind filming westerns, because I think it nails it from the blocking of the characters. Again, the graveyard scene we pointed out like several times during the movie. Just the way they stage, like with someone in the background, foreground, and midground. Like nowadays, I truly feel like movies don't use deep focus all that often.
No, I don't know if anyone really does.
And I think back.
I wish they did.
I wish they did too.
I think it looks cool. That's when everything is in focus, right?
Yes.
I think that looks cool.
And I think they use that in this movie incredibly well. They use the very high key lighting incredibly well. When you got the close-ups and the harsh shadows, like that really brings you into the world. They do that very well.
I'm waiting for the big butt.
In this scenario, I don't
keep
like big
going
butts.
down the amount of things that because there are a lot of things to like about this movie. Sergio Leone, literally a mastermind when it comes to westerns. He does great. All the actors, I think, they did great jobs. What this really just comes down to, the fact that I just couldn't attach myself to it. It's simply just because I didn't get invested in any of the characters. It just comes down to the fact that none of I understand that was the whole point back in the day. Like you said, this was the Man with No Name trilogy. It's all about him just kind of stumbling his way into issues and not necessarily shooting his way out, but just figuring his way out.
Shooting his way out.
Right? Yeah. And I just
stumbling into.
I mean, so he kind of stumbling into he doesn't go out specifically. Look, I mean, I know this one is
more of they stumbled across the gold thing, but I wouldn't say stumbling into trouble. It's all pretty well set up before the gold thing comes into play.
Well, yeah, but stumbling into the gold thing is kind of what you were saying. So, that's what this comes down to. Is technically it is very well made. I just didn't.
It didn't do it for you.
Suck into the characters.
Dickey doesn't like old movies.
That is literally. Did you not listen to a single word that I said?
Were you saying anything? That's the thing. I heard you talking.
Oh my god! I was literally.
I'm just picking on. I understand
you can like whatever you want to like.
I feel like there are times where it's I can recognize how good this is. I'm not connecting to it, but I don't know how
the length of it plays
The length
a major
is a
part
big. Oh my god.
Which now is a good segue into the versions we watched. Jake?
Well,
wait, is there more?
you want me to explain it?
Oh,
I'm just saying, we'll do it this way. What version did you guys watch?
the version that you rent through YouTube, which I think is the dubbed version.
They're all the dubbed version.
They all. Oh, that's
they
right,
are all the dubbed version.
Yeah, for context,
the thing is that there are what 2 or 3 versions of this floating? Just 2?
I think for context for you listeners, Italian movies of the era dubbed everything. So they would not use any of the sound on set. So everything is dubbed in post, and they had different versions for different languages, like any movie. So we watched the English language version, but there's 2 different versions.
I watched, I believe, the American theatrical release,
which is about 160 minutes. I watched, and the only version I've watched on this DVD right here is the 3-hour cut.
Wait, there's a cut less than 3 hours?
Oh, so you saw the 3-hour?
Yeah!
So Dickey saw what I watched.
Wait. Are you sure?
I am here. Let me.
Well, yeah. If you got it on YouTube, it said at the bottom like 2 hours 58 minutes.
It was literally almost 3 hours long.
So was the other one though. He might have watched your version.
I was going to say there's
might be the
there's like 16, 17 minutes because in the early 2000s because the Italian version was 177 or 178 minutes, and the American version they cut out some scenes to make it shorter.
But the American version would still be dubbed, correct?
Yeah, it's all.
I'm trying to decide if I think that I watched the version that you watched or if I watched the American theatrical. I'm guessing I watched the American theatrical version because some of the extra scenes you're talking about, I don't remember.
Wow.
Yeah.
I watched the 3-hour version.
Yep. So Dickey watched what I watched. Because if you notice, there are a couple scenes, like there's a scene with Tuco at the beginning in a cave.
Yes.
Where for some reason it sounds way different. He sounds different. What it was is they wanted to release the full Italian version, but with the English. They put the scenes back in. The problem is they don't have English versions of the 3 main characters. So they had to get Clint and Eli Wallach back in to redub the lines so they sound older. But Lee Van Cleef had been dead for a decade or 2 at a point, so they had to have someone else dub over those. So that's why those felt weird. They put them back in the movie, but for the English version, they had to redub it.
Thank you so much for
I need to see that version.
You want to borrow it?
That's probably so.
I have to watch 6 movies
legitimately,
this week,
Jake.
so no.
Legitimately, like any of the issues that I had, I might take them because, like I said, it was for me. It was the character and the pacing because it was so long. I half wonder if I watch the shortened version if I think it's paced a lot better. I
think it's paced pretty well. It's just it's an epic western, so the scope is huge.
Oh yeah,
it's long and it's just got so much going on. And once you get to the gold part of it, that's when the story kicks off.
I don't know though. I love the setup.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying that's when the story gets going. But that there's so much in that setup that adds so much to it because it's. These 2 were working together as outlaws, and Clint Eastwood one day did pull a pretty big dick move where he's like, yeah, you're just not going to be worth more than $300 or $3,000. And he just leaves him
to hang.
And I was like, okay, he kind of deserves revenge on him. Of course, the way Tuco does it is pretty awful.
Like, yeah, that's
but that scene where he's building his revolver in the gun shop.
Oh, it's great.
I love it.
Apparently, Eli Wallach knew nothing about guns. So he just improvised putting it together. He's just doing random stuff to put that gun together. And I think it was his idea to have the gun connected to a lanyard instead of being in a holster. So he couldn't get the gun out or put it away fast enough. So he suggested to Leone, let's get a lanyard so it can just hang right there. And
I did think that was interesting because you don't see that very often.
You mean he didn't want to pull a Dave Bautista?
Yes. Anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah. I was just going to say about the different... So we have all that build-up. So by the time we get to... Because it doesn't really make sense without that build-up. Because the whole reason he keeps Blondie alive is Blondie knows what grave it is. That's the only reason. And I do love the moment of, you should tell me, just in case. Not that you're going to, but you should tell me, just in case something happens. I would do the same. And he was like, so tell me, which grave is it? And he goes, why would I tell you I want my good friend by my side when I get better or whatever he says. I go, that's funny.
I did like their chemistry. I like I said, those two together they did a really, really good job. I really truly like the way they pulled off.
I think Dickey learning that there is a shorter version has turned around his tune.
It honestly has. Well, because I'm watching this, I'm just like, okay, I can appreciate. Look, that's a really cool shot. That's a really cool shot. I like the way they shot that. I like the way they framed that. I like this action. I like these characters. I'm just give me
something.
Which is weird because there's a really great scene between Tuco and his brother.
Yeah.
Really good. And that's the other thing. We don't need to dive super deep into these characters because, one, the Clint Eastwood character doesn't need to be.
They make them human in very small but meaningful ways.
I think people these days, everyone has to have everything about their life presented to you. And I think some characters are better with a more mysterious background.
Some are. I do think some are.
Like Blondie. I don't need to know where Blondie comes from. He kind of just everything you need to know about him is there. Tuco, and they give you what it is like. It starts the scene with his brother saying, like, our father's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're both dead now. It's just me and Tuco trying to be like, well, you could tell he feels bad, but also is still trying to be his usual standoffish. So
and then when he gets in the carriage with Blondie, oh yeah, he wants me back anytime I want.
Yeah, how many people have you met like that where it didn't go well, but they put on this facade of, oh yeah, everything's great.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And I like that about Tuco. These are not good people at all.
No.
But they feel real. Even Lee Van Cleef, it's like, yeah, we know the type. Another thing where we know the type of character this is. I don't need 10 minutes explaining where he comes from. He's a bounty hunter. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you need. Blondie, he's just this gun. He's a gunslinger. And then Tuco's the one that gets some of the background. We don't even need that much.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess.
And then he lets the poor. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, so something that I think when I compare this to is like No Country for Old Men, where I like that because I think it's a very similar scale and pace to this, but they give you a little more backstory.
I don't know about that.
I think the scale on this is bigger.
No Country is very, very concentrated on a small thing. There's a lot of traveling.
Yeah,
but it's very small scale. This is big.
I guess. I mean, when scale, I mean, just
this is a whole
the scope, like where did he travel?
How many?
Kind of more what it was.
Is this supposed to span years?
I don't know how long.
That's a very good point.
Because okay, and I just thought about this. So Angel Eyes disappears for a good portion of the movie.
Yeah.
And the next time you see him, he's a captain.
Yep, in the Yugen army.
That would take years, wouldn't it?
I don't know. Maybe it matters. Like, how long were they pulling their scams? How long was Blondie recovering? Like, that's
fair.
And another thing, we don't need that spelled out for us either.
No.
It's just kind of you take it as you go.
I was just curious. But one of my favorite scenes is when they're in the carriage and the caravan starts trotting up. And Tuco's like, down with the North.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah. What is it? Down with General Grant.
Oh yeah, General Lee.
General Lee.
No. It was General. Who was it? Lee. He didn't even know. Just a great little character moment of he is so not involved with the war. He doesn't even know the leader.
I mean, but think about the time frame. There's had to have been a lot of people like that, especially way out there.
Probably.
Yeah, it's just, and then they come up and they're Yugen soldiers just covered in dust. Which then brings us.
It's so funny. I love it.
And then I think. The movie is great, of course. I think through it, I was like, yeah, this is great. It's good. Once they get to the bridge, that's where it has me to the end for sure. Like everything with the bridge, like I love how like the captain is dying and he holds on just to see that bridge blow up.
Yeah.
Of course, that shot where Tuco and Blondie go into the little foxhole when the bridge blows up.
Yeah.
And there's a piece of debris that lands like 2 feet away from Clint Eastwood. That was real.
Oh, wow.
That could have killed him.
Oh, my God. That's...
Like, I remember seeing
You know,
like,
they were stressed on set. Like,
I remember, I don't know if it was more like, oh, well, that could have been bad.
Yeah.
Just, when you watch it too, I remember, I didn't even, I'd read that after the fact, I saw just, I go, I don't think that was planned. Yikes.
Damn, yeah, that would stress me out.
But I love that little moment when Blondie goes into the ruins of that church where that guy's dying.
Mm-hmm.
And he gives him his jacket. And then, again, I brought this up to Jake because I read, like, it's considered a prequel because that's where he gets that poncho that he's known for. Whereas the other 2 movies, he hasn't. This is where, so that's
I wonder if it was intentionally a prequel, though.
I mean,
I don't think that's ever a thing you'd know,
yeah.
but
maybe my whole thought is, what if it's, let's just have him find his poncho and be like, oh yeah, that's right. This is kind of a similar character in all 3 movies. But I could see it being a prequel. And of course, the graveyard scene might be one of the best movie scenes of all time. It's just
very...
The music.
Pretty perfect.
The music, the cutting.
Yeah. Like, you whistle that little... Woo, wow,
Oh, no.
like,
I don't whistle it. I belt it. No, Dickey, it's and then you hear the whip and you're like, let's go!
That's the thing that Morricone does so well with these spaghetti western scores. The use of electric guitar is perfect.
Yeah, it really
especially in this and his next movie, I think it was his next movie, Once Upon a Time in the West, uses that guitar so well.
It's so like the score in this. Like I don't think there is a human alive. I
think we're changing Dickey's mind on this movie.
No, you're not changing anything. The entire time, I know. I told you, I like the cinematography. I like the directing. I like the acting. I like the music. It's just the pacing, and I just didn't get sucked into the characters. That's it. Those are the only 2 things. That just it's if I got those, this would have been like a 10 out of 10. But instead, it's like a 7 out of 10.
Oh, great! We're throwing numbers out now.
Oh, sorry. I just like it.
I mean, it's a perfect movie, so
yeah. Well, on that note, is there anything else you want to mention about all of our favorite Clint Eastwood movies?
This was a good week.
It was a good week.
I forgot how, it's going to sound funny, how good looking Clint Eastwood was back in the day.
He
was a looker.
Looking.
He's old looking.
He's old looking. But yeah.
Still going too.
I don't 92.
Man, he's going to die on set. Honestly,
he's going to die behind a camera.
He will. That man is just given his entire, seriously, when did he start acting?
50s.
He's given us...
what's it called? What's the show? Rawhide.
Rawhide.
He has given us pretty much 70 years of movies. That's insane.
Writing and directing and producing.
That is actually insane.
And acting, sorry.
Yeah. But I think that's impressive. It really truly
And
is.
he was a mayor of a town for a while. In California, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I don't remember what it was called. It was like Carmel something.
Huh.
Let me look at that. Clint Eastwood, mayor.
As crazy as...
Carmel by the Sea City, California.
Huh. As crazy of a man as he is, and I disagree with a good amount of the things he says nowadays, he knows how to make movies.
He does.
He knows how to make movies.
And apparently also when he directs, he doesn't say action or cut. He says okay.
What?
Like he goes, okay. And then they start. And then when the shot's done, he just goes, okay.
Huh.
In his very low, raspy voice. Okay. Okay.
That's super interesting. Huh. All right. Well, if you want to keep watching more episodes from us, like today's episode, if you want to keep watching... I don't know where I'm going with this. This is a weird outro. Jared, where can they follow us on social media?
You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, funny TikTok, Twitter if it's still around.
Yeah.
And you can Listen to us on Apple, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and hey, watch us here on YouTube to see our good, quote-unquote, looking faces. Like, subscribe, comment, ring our bell, rate and comment on all those other services.
All the good stuff. Check out our website too. We got a website, allslatemedia.com. You listen to the episodes there and also just look at our shows and look at what we're about. And, it's cool that we have a website. So, yeah, thank you for listening to today's episode of Our Favorites. Stay tuned for more awesome content coming your way. More bite-sized, more Our Favorites. Who knows what we got coming out next. So stay tuned. From all of us here at Off Slate Media, thank you for listening.
Are you good? You need to take a breath?
Now we good. We'll see you next time.
Rawhide.